everyone, welcome back to Sports Khabri, and today we're here to talk about Tottenham Hotspur and their resurgence in the Premier League. Alok, first of all, before we start off, thank you so much for joining us. We've got Alok Badri from India Spurs, we've got Anshuman Joshi, like always, to provide us with that neutral perspective. First of all, how are you doing? And is it fair to call this Spurs movement as a resurgence of sorts?
Firstly, thank you so much for calling me. It's been a while since I appeared here. It was under Conte, and so many things happened back then. Since then, yes, you can definitely say it looks like a resurgence, right? The Tottenham Hotspur that generally that people are used to seeing over the years for the last, at least I've been following Tottenham since 2007-8 season. So the Tottenham that I know, the Tottenham that most people know, is about attacking football, right? It's about always playing with flair, irrespective of where we are in the table, irrespective of how we are doing, what I mean, where's the form. We have always performed well, or at least tried to play well on the front foot at all times. And that's why players like Klinsmann, players like Hoddle, Ginola, Sheringham, these players have always wanted to play for Spurs, or they have played for Spurs. People like Sheringham have left, went to United, came back again to play for Spurs, right? Robbie Keane, even for that matter. So that was the identity of Tottenham. And after 2019, when after that Champions League final, I think the board tried to go away from it for a bit to try and see whether we can win by some other ways or not. Because we have tried the attacking football, we have tried that underdog story for a while now. Let's try and get a proven manager. Let's try and play pragmatic football for the win. But well, the football was bad and it didn't even get any results, right? I don't think our board is enough, or rich enough. They are rich enough, I think, but that what probably Abramovich will do for Mourinho or Conte, or what Glazers will do today for Eric Ten Hag, or what City are doing for Guardiola. I don't think Tottenham will ever do it for any manager, right? They will not go and spend 300, 500 million pounds in a single transfer window. That means that these managers are set up for a failure, right? So it was never a good marriage to begin with. And from that, now we have Ange, an underdog manager. Everybody has always written him off in Australia, in Japan, in Celtic. Now that he's here, I think the kind of football, the expectations are minimal, and that's what actually, when you don't expect much, it's like a relationship, right?
That's
Don't
true.
expect much, so you don't get disappointed.
Yeah.
So I think it's similar to that now, and I'm really happy. I think it's not just what's happening in the football on the football pitch, but overall the atmosphere in the club is definitely different now, and that is something I'm looking forward to. Yes, so in short, actually, yes, a resurgence.
Yeah, but actually, I think that's something even I've noticed. At least around me, it seems like the vibes around Spurs is back to normal, and I feel like there is more positive energy. Before we start talking about more detailed
Yeah.
analysis of Spurs in this season ahead, Alok, how did you become a Spurs fan? Because there is, at least in India, there is so. Is it fair to say that there are fewer Spurs fans compared to the other big clubs? And
Yes,
how did it
definitely.
happen for you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Definitely fewer than like the top four, the traditional top four. But yeah, so I started following in 2007-8 season, and the first game that I saw was Tottenham Villa. It was around first week of October. It was Tottenham's 125th anniversary game, and we were 4-1 down, and then we came back to draw 4-4. Yunis Kabul scored one in the 90th minute or so to to draw the game, and I just blew my mind as a 17-year-old person watching that game, 16, 17-year-old guy watching that game for the first time, a team being 4-1 down and then coming back to draw.
Yeah.
And I started following Tottenham a little bit more. Back then, as you know, there was only two channels, Star Sports and ESPN. So very few Tottenham matches would actually get telecast. But that season, we also won the League Cup. So we beat Arsenal 5-2 in the semi-final, and then we went on to beat Chelsea in the final to win the League Cup. We had Berbatov, Robbie Keane, Modric came the season after that. So uh, it was kind of love at first sight, yes, but I had to actually spend more time with the club to actually fall in love like this. And yeah, it's been 15, 16 years of agony, disappointment, roller coaster ride, but I wouldn't change anything. Now, from that point, like I'm the chairman of India Spurs since last 6 years, and today we have thousands of fans across 20 different states in India. We have 20 different OSCs in India, and probably four more will start this season. So from where we were, probably five, six people meeting in a pub in Mumbai to watch a game together. Today we get like at least 100, 150 people to watch a game together in Mumbai. So it's a good turnout eventually. So yeah, we are growing slowly.
It's good that we have so many Indian fans at least coming out and supporting whichever club they back. Come out and yeah. Okay. Anshuman, we spoke about this. I remember a few weeks ago. I asked you the question, "What is Ange ball?" Today, I ask you the same question, having seen a little more of it. Does your answer change at all?
Um, I think my understanding of what it entails at Spurs has changed, has grown a bit, but I think what I believed back then has basically stayed the same. Because even I think even in a recording with Rock Baba, I basically said that if you want to sum Angeball in one word, it's brave. Football is brave, and that's going to result in a lot of volatility in the outcomes in the score lines. But it's fun to watch and it's exhilarating. It makes you feel, which, as Alok has pointed out, is something that became very, very crucial for Tottenham after years of Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte. So yeah, but it hasn't changed, but it's interesting to see how they have started off, how Tottenham have started off playing, how different it is from what it was there before, how better it gels with what usually works for Tottenham, what usually works for the philosophy, what's celebrated more at Tottenham, and it just feels like a very good mix. It feels like a very good marriage, Tottenham and Ange Postecoglou. And I said this when he came on last time, that I just love him as a person. And it doesn't really matter which club you support for. It's really envious seeing him being manager of a different club and having that cool uncle energy, someone who takes no quarters, who just chill, but who will scold you at the right time as well, but will not unnecessarily mollycoddle you, but he will love you to bits. Like, he has that cool uncle energy. This is something that transcends culture. Like, people in the UK are saying the same thing. We here in India are saying the same thing. He's just the kind of person you want to hear more and more of, and these are the kind of personalities you like to listen from. You like to watch them implement themselves around. So it's just exciting. Like, watching Tottenham exciting. It's been a while since one could say that, and I think it's good for football as a neutral that Tottenham have Ange Postecoglou as manager, and it might not always result in victories. I know they've started well, but it's still very early in the season to make any kind of point. I think Tottenham fans would know better than me that until unless the final whistle of a final game has gone in any competition, let's not make any judgment about whether we can call this success or not. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. Whether it's going to be good and bad from a Tottenham fan's point of view, it's going to be exciting, and I just cannot wait to see what Postecoglou does more at Tottenham. It's really brave football. It's exciting. You love him. You love his football, and it's just, I cannot wait for more.
Yeah, it does seem very exciting, and it's not only the manager. I think now the players that have come into Spurs. One particular favorite of mine is James Madison. I've always wanted him at Arsenal. He's so fun to watch, and he's really putting on a show now for the Spurs fans. Alok, your take on the new signings and your favorite amongst them?
Well, Madison definitely has. I mean, you have to understand where, like, how Madison has come in now. After Ericsson, we haven't had that creative unit in our system for the last 4 5 seasons. So even if he weren't that good, uh, Tottenham fans would have still adored him, even if he was like at 50% of what he's currently doing, right? Then for him to come, get integrated in the team so quickly, to understand Ange's philosophy so quickly, because now he's not the traditional number 10 there. He's more like a number 8 who's gonna make a lot of forward runs and try and occupy those half spaces that is getting created because of a winger and the striker, right? And for him to understand that so quickly, to understand how Son and Richarlison are making their runs, to build this chemistry so quickly, on the pitch and with the fans also. I think that is like a very good commendable thing for from his side. So like Anshuman said that Ange's football is so attractive to watch, so pleasing to eyes. I would give as much credit to these players that they have bought into this belief, right? They have bought into this because eventually these are the legs that execute any plans that Ange wants to make on the paper, right? If these legs aren't good enough, your brain is just as good as these players, right? So these players have actually come out, accepted this. I've understood what the job is, what the task is, and they have gone and executed it in the last 4 games. I mean, the first 4 games of the season very nicely. And two important factors for that is these two 20-year-old people that are playing for us, Pape Matasar and of course Udogi, right? Uh, Udogi, he was on loan last season. Everybody thought that, we knew that he was going to be good, but nobody expected him to be so good. He's already at the levels of prime Rose for us. I mean, I've seen Rose playing for us. It's too early, I know. He needs to perform on this level over the next 2 seasons to be able to, be that great player for us. But the early signs are so good. Like for a 20-year-old person to come into the league, play for the team for the first time, play for that manager for the first time, and put on this show, season like game after game, it's incredible. And that maturity that these players are showing is commendable. So I think yes, Udogi, Sar, I'm really excited about these two players. But I also spoke about this in my own on my own channel that as much as Madison is important to us, the second player who's gonna make or break our season, and for me that's Vicario, because we are playing such a high line. The goalkeeper has to be on his toes at all times. He cannot let like these silly goals go in, right? After that first jittery game against Brentford, he's just become better and better. I think we have considered probably most number of shots on target, or at least top four, top. We are in top three or top four when it comes to the number of shots on target, and we have considered one of the least number of goals in the league today, and that's down to Vicario because some of the saves that he has pulled out are incredible. We are building from the back again. He's making those smart passes. So I think that goal, and we have missed that figure in Tottenham for a while. Loris was a great shot stopper. As a United fan, would understand that De Gea, great shot stopper, but distribution absolutely bad, right? You pass him back, I mean, pass the ball back to him, and he wouldn't know what to do with it, and that always happened with Loris.
Yeah.
Today, I'm happy that there is a goalkeeper who you can pass very confidently back to, and who can start a new gameplay or a new build up from the back. So that's, I think, really important. So for me, Madison and Vicario are those two players or those two signings that are going to make or break our season. So far, I think Madison has to be in the league signing of the season so far. Of course, we know Bellingham, how he is performing. So I'm not going to talk about the signing of the season overall. That has to be Bellingham for me. But for the league, definitely it's Madison.
Yeah, he's off to a flying start. Anshuman, a couple of other signings, interesting ones for Tottenham. Brennan Johnson from Nottingham Forest. They've brought in Mickey Van de Ven. Any other favorites for you? Where do you see, and in particular, Brennan Johnson, where do you see him fitting in? Like, Alok, I'd come to you again after Anshuman, because I want to understand from you guys, where do you see him playing? Do you see him playing down the middle, on the wings? What's happening with Brennan Johnson?
I think what he showed at Nottingham, and it's still very early for him in his career in general. I think he showed that when it comes to his movement, he would suit going out wide in the Ange system, because I don't think we have seen we have enough of a sample size for him as far as his central positioning and finishing is concerned to be able to ascertain that okay, he's going to be the number 9. Because the thing with this particular system that Ange is going on with, the number 9 does not really require to have that many touches on the ball. I think they just require to have a relatively central occupation, just occupy the centre backs, stretch the spaces between the full backs and the centre backs so as to help those wide overloads that your attacking players are creating so that you can actually properly exploit them. And I think Brennan Johnson would come in. It's still very early. he is an exciting player, and the price tag really does irk me. But
Yeah.
when you think about the hyperinflation that has basically gone on over the transfer window, uh, what 47.5 million pounds bought you 6 months ago, and what 47.5 million pounds, which is the reported sum for Brennan Johnson, brings you now, is very, very different. It's a completely different universe. So I think based on the transfer fees that other players have gone for, it feels on par. But I think it's still very early in his season. But I can definitely see him, at least for starters, fitting in as a wide forward, so who would interchange positions with the number eights and the fullbacks. So I think he is an exciting player. So he fits that Tottenham mold the same way, that because we are yet to see in the long term how Ange performs as a manager in the most competitive leagues in the world, one of the most competitive leagues in the world. We are yet to see the heights this Tottenham side can achieve, and to that same end, we are yet to see what exactly Brennan Johnson's potential is, but we can see him fitting in the system. I think if I were a Tottenham fan, I would take a lot of optimism from the fact that when you look at the other underrated signings, I mean, I can't really call Brennan Johnson an underrated signing, but when you look at the likes of Guglielmo Vicario, as Alok pointed out,
Yeah.
he's come from Empoli and he's immediately on the ground running, and he looks really good immediately. Mickey van der Veen coming from Wolfsburg, few people have heard about him, and he's 22 years old, and he looks like he has been at Tottenham for ages. He looks like he has been a professional footballer for at least 7 8 years. He's so mature, and and we saw that back at Celtic as well. The players that Ange and staff were hiring, they weren't players who were that famous in Europe, but they performed brilliantly. So that is something that we can see from its time as Celtic as well. That he not only improves the existing players, he has this tendency to unearth players that are not that well known, not that big name players, but they fit in his system so well that they become good players in their own right, and they shine in their own right. When you even look at the likes of Yves Bissouma, who's essentially a new signing this season because of how
Yeah.
little he was even mentioned under Conte. So his resurgence is quite emblematic of the fact that he can unearth players like that, players who were previously considered not good enough at this level. They can start performing again. So there are a lot of optimist things to look at, and to that end, I think Brennan Johnson will fit in. Will he be able to justify that price tag in comparison to what Tottenham are trying to aim for? I think we are yet to see. I think it's too big an ask on his end. As a United fan, I can tell you having big price tags never really work out in your favor. I hope it's a bit different for Brennan Johnson. Not the biggest of price tags, but all the same, he does fit in the system I'm just trying to deploy currently at Tottenham. So, and when you look at the recent track record, and we have very, very little sample size for this, with the likes of Vicario and Van der Veen, I think you have to be excited as a Tottenham fan as to what Brennan Johnson can offer in the system of Ange Postecoglou.
Well, fair enough. Alok, where do you see Brennan Johnson fitting in?
Yeah, I agree. I think I see him playing on the wings. I think if I'm not wrong, his preferred wing is to play on the right hand side.
Yeah, on the
If
right
I'm
side.
not
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But currently we have Kulusevski playing there. Now we have to understand what Ange's system is, and then to see where Brendan Johnson fits here, right? Ange prefers his wingers to be wider and stay wide, so that there are enough holes created in the center for the number eights to make those runs in, basically to underlap. Now, problem with both Son and Kulusevski is that they both like to cut in. Kulusevski is a right winger whose preferred foot is a left foot, so he would always want to cut in and then make that cross in, right? So he would not. He doesn't prefer to stay out wide. So that's why this system is still not at its full potential, I would say. Brennan Johnson is that player who can stay out wide, who can take on the defenders, he can go one on one against you, and probably come out as a winner also in that duel. So I I see him playing on the right hand side to begin with. If Son plays on the left and Richarlison is in the center, but on the other end, if Son is somebody who's playing as a number nine, I see Brennan Johnson moving to the left and then Kulusevski coming in as a right. Again, and uh, would like to make a lot of changes. He would like to keep his front four a lot more flexible than I would like to believe at this point of time. So it's only, I mean, I would love to see Brennan Johnson playing on the wing only because we have lacked that. It's been ages since we had someone like Bale to make those runs and take on defenders and go one on one against players.
Yeah.
So it's exciting to see. And another player, I think, like Anshuman said, why Tottenham fans should feel really hopeful about these signings is that from our rebuild has actually gone under the radar. In 2021, whatever team we had put in, I think Højbjerg and the Son. Højbjerg and Son are the only two players who are still probably can get into like this playing 11 now. Every single player has changed since then, and we haven't had to make like those 70 million, 80 million, 90 million signings to replace that. Bissouma 25 million, Madison
Yeah.
35 million, 40 million, right? Pedro Porro 40 million. Brennan Johnson is I mean, Richarlison of course 50 million, but he had come from a good season at Everton, and the strikers market was anyway a little inflated back then. But in the world where you can get Lukaku for 100 million, probably 50 million for Richarlison was a steal, right? Uh, he's yet to perform at that level, but there isn't Perisic. Udogi has come in, Sarr has come in, Mickey Van de Ven, like you said, again 35 million. I think Romero was somewhere around 40-45 million. So we haven't had to make those statement signings, but this team suddenly looks so fresh, and every single player has a good ceiling, and that's where Tottenham has always performed well. Try them young, bring them to the to the club, develop them. They give you something for 2-3 seasons, then you sell them, and then you buy two more new players in that. That model has worked for Tottenham in the past, and I think that's the model that we should go forward also with. And yeah, good signings. I think there is one more new signing that I think Vlasovic or somebody who's a defender, and he's now 16-year-old defender that we had signed, and he's come from Ukrainian league. Liverpool, City were behind him, and I mean PSG and City were behind him, but he has chosen to come to Tottenham. He's of course gonna come to Tottenham only after like 2 years, but we are now signing for the future. We're not signing for today. It's a project that we are building, and that's actually is a good signing. Like Ashley Phillips that is coming in now, 18-year-old person, right? Uh, Good player. And our academy is also coming in, and with players like Dorrington and Donley coming into the system, it's an exciting project at Tottenham right now, and that's where we feel hopeful. It is not
Yeah.
dull football and just signing for just 1 or 2 seasons. It's building for the future, and that's what Tottenham should do.
Very interesting. And Anshuman, just it's been a lot of optimism. As an Arsenal fan, I am not liking this. Just gonna just gonna throw in one name where let's be realistic. I think there's been a bit of Spurs fans are probably not too happy with his performances so far. Richarlison, uh, slight issues with him. Is clearly not hit the mark. Anshuman, where do you stand with Richarlison? Are you saying, okay, let's still be a little patient? The new manager's coming. It's been 4 games in the new season. Do we have to be patient with Richarlison still?
It is possible that his form becomes irrelevant whether as to whether he succeeds at Tottenham or not. Because let's these things can snowball pretty quickly as far as a person's how a person performs at a club is concerned. Because let's think about it. He comes in last season in a Conte side that from the season's get-go very quickly feels like it's going nowhere. So for a lot of new players that have arrived there, like Yves Bissouma, Jet Spence, and Richarlison is one of them, it just doesn't feel like it's going to work out for them in the long term because he's not playing in the as a forward who can play across the front three. He's not able to perform that well. He has teething issues, which is more than normal, and so he has a bad season essentially last time round, and gets a pretty bad rep for it. And he has now reached a point where it is becoming increasingly hard for him to get back into the side. And I also feel very reluctant to make any harsh comments about him because he has recently come out and said that in the international break that when he comes back, when he returns to London, he's going to seek psychological help because all of
Yeah,
this is.
yeah, yeah.
So I think as a Manchester United fan, I can we are seeing we as fans are seeing Manchester United for the lack of a better expression, completely shitting the bed with the Jadon Sancho situation, and it's annoying, it's infuriating, it's shameful the way it has been happening. Like you would think that after the Delhi Ali interview, Woodcock came out, and when he talked about how hard it was for him to even have the kind of career that he's gone on to have, and that people would be a bit more sensitive, a bit more appreciative of how hard things are for footballers as well. But obviously, the collective mentality, the collective ability to understand things of a mob is a lot lesser than the sum of than its individual, than its constituent individuals. So I think we are reaching at this point with Richarlison that it becomes a lot more about his psyche than it is about what his abilities are. Because his abilities are absolutely not in question. He's a fantastic footballer, and he's someone who can play across the front three positions. So we have seen Ange try him centrally, which is a role that, given what Ange requires of his number nines, he can perform. He can do that role on the right as well, like Alok pointed out, the role that he would like to see Brennan Johnson play.
Mhm.
Richarlison can that he can do that thing on the left as well. But I think right now it's more of a matter of for him to feel at home. Uh,
Yeah.
Ange has provided a track record that he is really good with players, even when he feels like they are not going to work out for him. Like you look at Pierre-Emerick Højbjerg, who was number one choice of both Mourinho and Conte, and is now completely frozen out. But even with those players, he's dealing with them in a way that they know where they stand, and they don't really harbor any kind of bad feelings towards the manager to a degree that they could ruin dressing room dynamics to that end. They are not
Mhm.
doing that. I, based on what little I've seen of Postecoglou, I expect him to handle the situation with the delicacy it requires. And if he's able to manage that, if he's able to get his spirits back up, and I first of all sincerely hope that Richarlison gets the help that he needs, he's asking for, quite literally. And if he gets that, if he's able to feel better in this environment, then then I think he'll definitely come good. So, but we have seen that these things can take a lot of time to get better once they have started going bad, and it's very easy for them to get even worse before they start getting better again. So again, this is a situation that needs to be dealt with a lot of nuance. From what I've seen of Anch, I expect him to be able to handle it that way, but it's still a big ask. And even if it doesn't work out for Richarlison, I think it would be important for Tottenham to realize that uh, for a player in the kind of position that he is right now, he may need to move to a different environment to just feel better in general, regardless of football. So again, a
Right.
delicate situation. For as far as the talent is concerned, no question about that. As far as his flexibility and his ability to fit into the system that we have seen Postecoglou employ is concerned, again he can totally do that. But this is a matter that is to be sorted out less on the field and more off it. So once he comes back, I hope first of all he gets the right treatment that he requires, and I do believe that Ange will be able to handle that. And a lot of things need to go right in this direction. Again, I'll use the Jadon Sancho example. Do not do what Ten Hag did, because that's a completely different discussion. But I expect Postecoglou to take a slightly more mature route with it as far as man management is concerned. And if everything conspires to go in Richarlison's direction, he can come back a player that we have not yet seen, because he has
Yeah.
always had potential. But yeah, a lot needs to go right now, and I really hope for Richarlison's sake that it does, because he is the kind of player that Tottenham could use. And in general, you want to wish another person well, whatever happens, whether he
Absolutely.
succeeds or not. I hope that things do get better for him, and he succeeds, if not at Tottenham, then elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, Alok, is there a fear among Spurs fans that he could potentially be compared to club legend who just left, Harry Kane? Of course, he was behind Erling Haaland. He didn't win the Golden Boot, but he had a banger season. I mean, if I can say that, because 30 goals in the Premier League is no joke. And now you have a striker who's probably the goals have dried up for him. Is there a fear amongst fans that there could be comparisons with Harry Kane?
Well, I also feel that our fans are also in some cases the first ones who would compare Richarlison to Kane, in a sense that when your striker like Kane, who's your main striking unit for the last 7-8 seasons, leaves, uh, whoever's going to replace him was always going to be put under that
Yeah.
pressure where he was going to get compared with Kane, not just in terms of the number of goals that he would have to deliver every season, but it's also about overall what he would bring on the pitch, because Kane was not only about scoring goals, but his link up plays, hold up play. So anybody who's gonna come with Richarlison, I mean, instead of Kane, was always going to get compared with Kane. My problem with Richarlison is that I think, uh, I mean, is this only where he's getting compared with Kane? Because it's absolutely ridiculous and unfair on Richarlison's part that he should be compared with Kane and be expected to deliver at the same level. I also feel that, like Anshuman said, right, Ange's system in Ange's system, striker is not the main goal scoring threat, right?
Mhm.
Your striker is somebody who's going to stretch your defense for your number eights to come in. He's going to hold up play a lot. He's going to link up a lot, right? If you see any of the goals that we score or any of the shots on target that we have had, you will realize that wherever the attack is coming from, Richarlison's job is to stretch the defense towards the opposite side of it, and the way he's creating those spaces and for other players to come in, it's actually very commendable. So in my eyes, he's not actually, he's doing what is told to do.
Mhm.
Whatever he is Anges told him, he's doing that. Now only problem is that the goals are not coming, but that's also because you will see that we're not reliant on our number 9 to score all the goals now. If you see the goals
Okay.
that have been scored in the first few games so far, just remove Son's hat trick here. Uh, Two goals have come from Romero. One goal has come from Emerson Royal. One goal, which was an own goal against United, but that was almost like Davis coming in. Davis actually has the most expected goals for Tottenham so far, right? Uh, so before the game, I mean, before the Burnley game, that was the case, right? So if you look at all of that, you will realize that goals are not gonna just come from number 9. It's gonna come from everywhere else, and that's why I'm not concerned about whether he's scoring goals or not, as long as he's doing what he's supposed to do on the pitch, which
Mhm.
is a lot more than just scoring goals, but off the ball movements that he's been able to do. I just want goals to come for himself, because when he
Yeah.
goes back to Brazil, he's going to take the same form along with him. And as we saw in this international break, when I think it was the game against Bolivia, if I'm not wrong, or Uruguay, where he cried after he got substituted, and then he came out and said that I'm actually going through something where mentally I'm not at the right place, and but I do want to go back to England, speak to my manager about this, get a psychological help, and get back on my full form. I think I just want
Yeah.
goals to come only for that, so that he feels good about himself. He feels confident again. Because when the goals are not coming, you generally start affecting the other areas of your game also. So far, that's not happened with Richarlison, but that might start happening very soon. That's my only concern. But if I look at the team overall, right, if Richarlison doesn't perform, uh, for example, last year, right, Son stopped performing and everything just came on Kane, and then there was absolutely nobody. It was always just Kane. Scored 30 goals for a team that finished eighth in the season, eight, which is ridiculous if you think about it. You take Kane's goal out, and then Tottenham's nowhere.
Yeah.
We're not going to struggle this season. Even if Richarlison doesn't score, it's going to be Son. If Son stops scoring, it's going to be Madison. If both of them stop scoring, it's going to be Sar, Brennan Johnson, Perisic. It's just the system, right? Systems are going to score goals, and that's what I'm more excited about.
Well, fair enough. Before we wrap this up quickly, I think there is a lot of positives to take from this Tottenham start in the first 4 games before the break. Anshuman, quickly, where do you see Spurs finishing this season? I know this is not a game that you like to play, but let's just quickly do it. Where do you see Spurs finishing?
I would say top half finish. I'll play this as safe as I can because I don't know. There are, I think, a lot of players, as far as teams are concerned, that are better equipped to end up in the top spaces. I think for Tottenham, the primary requirement is to just feel good about their football team. That's the first thing, and I think that would prove to be a good foundation. I think I have a feeling that Tottenham are going to have a better season that everyone's expecting them to have, because right now the expectations are bare minimum. Like, it's not like Chelsea that who have spent 1 billion in their three transfer windows, so there is expectations on at least the powers that be at the club to deliver something. That's not that case here, because Daniel Levy has again had one of those summers where he comes out on top, where his reputation is on top. So he's very happy about this. And when you look at the fact that Fabio Paratici is basically no longer active in football, period. This was the football director last season. So that was again a problem. That problem has gone. A lot of problems that existed at Tottenham have now gone. And in many ways, Kane sticking around as much as he did became a problem as far as the long-term future of the club is concerned. He's gone now. He's free to do his own thing and eventually come back if he wants to. Tottenham have a lot of money to spend around and build properly. So I think this is Tottenham are going to have a much better season. Not many expectations from them. A top half finish. I think a European qualification is very much on the line, and I think it's going to feel a lot better than it otherwise would. Like if you two seasons ago, this Tottenham team that made the Champions League final in 2019, if you would have told them, oh, 3-4 years down the line, you're going to finish seventh, or you're going to feel very good about it, they would have gawked at your face. But I genuinely think that it's one of those seasons where uh, getting a top four position is less important than just having that feel good feeling and have very strong
Yeah.
foundation to build furthermore. So yeah, a top half finish for Tottenham. I think it's very hard for them to go far below that. I feel, and a European qualification is very likely. And if that happens, that will be a cherry on top of a otherwise very good season as far as feelings and intangibles are concerned.
Yeah, it's all about the football, isn't it, Alok? Where do you see Spurs finishing this season?
Anshuman has been very generous with the top of finish prediction, but I agree. In a sense that top four, top five is something that I don't see myself Tottenham going
Okay.
for right now. The only reason I'm saying is that there are teams which are more deep into their projects than Tottenham is today. You have Arsenal, City, United. It's the second season under Eric Ten Hag. They've spent good. They've gotten good players. Onana, Amrabat, uh, Hoyland, right? So they've gotten good players now to be able to charge for that. Chelsea, of course, is going to be in the mix because they've spent just ridiculous amount of money in the last 2-3 seasons. Liverpool, everybody thought the transfer window was going bad, going bad, going back, and suddenly they have like good 2-3 players who have come in, and now they look steady, right? Uh, and they have the managers who have been here for good 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons now, and for them to deliver, it's going to be easy. Now you have like then you have teams like Brighton, you have teams like Newcastle,
Newcastle.
right? So it's although it's top five teams going into the Champions League this season, it's not just six teams going for those top five now. It's about 8 to 9 teams fighting for those top five positions, and that's why I don't want to put that extra pressure on Tottenham and the fans alike that we are definitely going to finish in top four, top five. The early signs are looking very bright, and like Anshuman said, I would want that identity to be brought back in Tottenham this season. We build a good foundation for us to build something on in the next season. The core has to be developed, that chemistry has to be developed good enough. I would have loved to have a good cup run, but we unfortunately, in the most Tottenham way, got thrown out of the League Cup. FA Cup is still there.
Yeah.
No European football. So we are just gonna play one game a
A week.
week till January now, right? Until FA Cup fixtures come in, and that just gonna make whole lot of difference in Tottenham season now, because most of these teams who are fighting for top four, top five do have European football to look after. Arsenal, after 7, 8 years, they are back in the Champions League, and they cannot take the Champions League for granted anymore. They have to play their first team, strong team in the Champions League, right? Liverpool would want to probably see that okay, I mean, focus on the league and not go for Europa League. But let's just say they go, further in the group stages. I mean, after the group stages, then they would definitely try to give that European Club Cup, a chance, because it's not just uh, a top. I mean, it's trophy plus Champions League spot if
Correct.
you win this, right? So they might just go for that as well. That means that a lot of teams will probably struggle overall. Newcastle with the European football, they will probably struggle. So considering all of that, I feel European places, yes, are on the cards. If we finish in top four, top five, it's just a bonus. I don't expect us to finish in top four, top five. And I would not want, because sometimes, if you start achieving things a little early, a little ahead of the plan, then you start feeling that the squad is good enough, and then you stop investing in the squad, right? That something same happened with Tottenham under Poch. We peaked a little too early, and then we did not know what to do with that team. I would want us to take a slow and steady approach, like Arsenal did with Arteta, right? They took good 4 seasons to even finish in the top four for the first time, but when they did, they went for the title,
Yeah.
right? So I would want us to take that slow and steady approach. Even if we don't finish top four, top five, I don't mind this season. Good foundation, good January transfer window, and then whatever happens at the end of the season, we add a 2, 3 new more players into that and build on top of that. So yeah, that's the bare minimum.
Oh, it's awesome, guys, because I mean, we're kind of in consensus. I mean, I actually was a little more optimistic about Spurs. I think they're actually looking good, um, early on, at least compared to United for me. But yeah, we'll have to see where Spurs finish. And thanks so much, Alok. Thanks so much, Anshuman, for joining in. Like
Thank you so
always, thank you, everybody. Hit the like button, share, and subscribe to Sports Kabri. We'll see you soon.